Barthes believes that a myth is a message in a system of communication. It functions as a mode of speech. Since it is a speech act, he believes everything can be a myth provided it is conveyed by discourse. This discourse he mentions is a speech act. A speech act is a means of this communication between a speaker and an audience. Basically, a speech act is a use of language to perform an act. The function of myth as a speech act will be discussed later, but first let us look into what a myth is. In a semi-logical system, historically there are three terms: signifier, the signified, and the sign. The sign is a total of the first two terms. Myth is created from an existing semi-logical chain. In myth, there's a tridimensional pattern like in the semi-logical system, but it is created from the semi-logical system that precedes it. So, it is a second-order semi-logical system. In the myth process, two semi-logical processes overlap each other in a staggered fashion. The first is a linguistic system of language. The second is a meta-language, which is the myth itself. Basically, the sign in the first system becomes a signifier in the second system. In myth, we have the form and the concept, or the signifier and the signified. The signifier of myth is dubious. It is a form and a concept, empty on one side, full on the other. Meaning is created at one level, but then it is removed from the object so that the object can turn into a signifier with another meaning at another level. The form, however, does not suppress the meaning of the object. It only vacates it so that it can be filled with new meaning. The meaning of myth is developed by the connotation the object has associated with it. It is a secondary meaning that developed the myth. The signifier and the signified, or form and concept, are similar, yet different. The signifier is signified in the first system, but the sum of their meaning becomes the signifier in the second system. They need to work together to create myth. Unlike the form, the concept is not abstract. Barthes believes the concept is a formless, unstable, nebulous condensation whose unity and coherence are above all due to its function, while the form serves to impoverish the meaning. Like I mentioned earlier, myth functions as a speech act. A speech act is the use of language to perform an act. A speech act can vary from giving a command to get someone to commit an act to asking a question in order to get an answer. I believe myth functions as a perlocutionary act of speech as it produces an effect in the speaker's audience. Perlocutionary acts commit psychological effects on the listener, such as inspiring, enlightening, or persuading them. In this regard, myth functions as a speech act because the meaning is created from the signifier and the signified, enlightens the audience, and persuades them to see the concept in a new light. Speaking of seeing concepts in a new light, neologism is a notion of a word developing a new definition in someone's mind. The new definition becomes something perceived as real. Barthes is attracted to them because it parallels the point he is making about the signifier and the signified. Barthes' belief is that a visual object can instigate a connotation in the mind of the viewer, thereby changing the object's meaning to something else. In regards to neologism, the word stated evokes emotions in a listener who in return perceives a new meaning to the word. Neologism can resist the myth process because it already is a two-step process. The word develops new meaning just as an object develops new meaning in myth. The myth process, however, is a three-step process being converted into a two-step process in order to create myth. Now let's apply these concepts to a contemporary image. The following is an image by the artist Shepard Fairey. The image depicts an African-American man dressed in a suit, looking away but deep in thought. The signifier has two aspects. One empty, the form, which is an image of a man deep in thought. The second aspect is full. It is the meaning of the image, which in this case is a poster promoting current President Obama while running for the 2009 elections. What the concept alters is the meaning of the image. It changes the image of President Obama to one that evokes emotion. This is where the myth is created. The image of President Obama looking away, deep in thought, colored in red, white, and blue, and emblazoned with the word hope. This creates the myth that President Obama signifies change. Taking it a step further, we analyze the neologism of this image and realize that the image of President Obama and the name Obama brings one word to my mind: change. Just looking at the image, we see an African American man depicted in the colors of the American flag with the text hope. The myth of this image is the sum of its meanings. To me, the myth is change coming to the United States. Change in the form of the first African American president of the United States, change as in a change in political parties representing the United States, and change as a measure of the social growth the United States has experienced over the last decade.